All right, let's dive into an absolutely epic story. We're talking about something that spans thousands of years, a magnificent promise of restoration made to a people who had lost everything, and how it all unfolds in a way that, well, nobody could have predicted. But that gets us to the big question, the one that really kicks off this whole explainer. What if that ancient promise, the one about a perfect future, what if it isn't just something we're all still waiting for? What if it actually kicked off 2,000 years ago? To really get this, we have to travel back in time, way back, over 2,500 years ago, to the prophet Jeremiah. I mean, just picture it. His people are captives in Babylon, their home is destroyed, their nation is just shattered. And right into that despair, Jeremiah brings this incredible, almost unbelievable message of hope. And look, this wasn't just some small promise. This was massive. Jeremiah's prophecy painted a picture of total restoration. We're talking a return to their land, their cities rebuilt, a righteous king on the throne, and get this, blessings that would spill over and affect the entire world. The expectation he set was just huge. Okay, so to make sense of how this whole story plays out, we need to grab onto this one key idea. Let's call it the now and not yet principle. The basic idea is that these giant biblical promises, they don't just pop into existence all at once. Nope, they unfold in stages over a long, long time. So parts of the promise are true now, but the full, complete picture is not yet here. So that brings us to the first act of this incredible story. This first stage of fulfillment picks up about 70 years after Jeremiah first made that grand promise. And at first glance, it looks like everything is happening right on schedule. It's almost perfect. Jeremiah said 70 years of exile, and what happens? Almost exactly 70 years later, the Persians, led by Cyrus the Great, conquer Babylon, and he says, yep, you can all go home. Promise number one? Check. Or so it seemed. You can just imagine this verse was ringing in their ears as they headed home. I mean, listen to that language. Hope, prosperity, a future without harm. This is the five-star experience they were promised, and the one they were absolutely expecting. But then, you get this, a reality check. 100 years after they got back, Nehemiah writes this down, and it is heartbreaking. He says, sure, we're back in the land, but we are slaves this day. They're living under the thumb of a foreign empire, in their own home, and in great distress. Oof. This is where that analogy really hits home, right? It was like they were promised a 5-star vacation, and they showed up to a 2-star motel. They had changed their geography. They were physically home, but spiritually, they were still in exile. They weren't truly free. So those grand promises from Jeremiah, yeah, they felt hollow, incomplete. It was a massive disappointment. So if stage one was this, well, flawed, incomplete return, the story can't end there. Something else has to happen, right? For that, we've got to fast forward several hundred years, right into the pages of the New Testament and the time of Jesus. And what did things look like then? Honestly, not a whole lot had changed. Israel was now being ruled by the Roman Empire. So even though they'd been back in the land for centuries, that feeling of being in exile, of not being truly free, it never really went away. They were still waiting for that real deliverance Jeremiah had promised. Now, it's not just Jeremiah. Another prophet, Isaiah, had also talked about this amazing future restoration. He described someone who would come and announce this ultimate freedom, this final release from exile. He called it the year of the Lord's favor. And this is where the story just takes a wild turn. Jesus, in his hometown, stands up, reads that exact passage from Isaiah, and then he says something that must have just floored everyone in the room. He looks at them and says, today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. He's basically saying, hey, remember that great restoration you've been waiting for centuries? It's starting, right now, with me. So this totally flips the script on what the prophets meant by the last days. See, they weren't just talking about the end of the world. They were talking about the beginning of God's kingdom era. And Jesus' incredible claim is that this era was inaugurated. It was kicked off at his first coming. The now had officially arrived. But that raises a pretty big question, doesn't it? If the kingdom had begun, why wasn't everything suddenly perfect? Well, just like stage one, this part of the story takes a really unexpected and, honestly, pretty tragic turn. So Jesus comes, announcing that the promises are being fulfilled. But his message about a spiritual kingdom, his call for people to change their hearts, it was largely rejected. And because of that unbelief, stage 2 would also be an incomplete fulfillment. It added a whole new layer of not yet to the story. And what happens next is just wow. It's this incredible, chilling echo of the past. Jesus essentially becomes a new Jeremiah. Centuries before, Jeremiah had condemned the corruption in the temple. Now, Jesus does the exact same thing, even using Jeremiah's precise words, a den of robbers. It shows he didn't just come to bring restoration. When he was met with unbelief, he also had to announce judgment. Okay, so let's pull all these different threads together. In this last section, we're going to see how this whole now and not yet framework really helps us find our place in this massive unfolding story. So here it is, the whole story in 3 acts. Stage 1, the return from Babylon. That was a partial, incomplete fulfillment. Then you have stage 2, Jesus' first coming. This inaugurated the kingdom. That's our now. And all of that points forward to stage 3, his future second coming. That's when the promise will finally be consummated, completely fulfilled. That's the not yet that we're all still waiting for.
So where does that leave us, you and me? Well, it puts us right here, in the in-between times. We are living in the age of the kingdom that Jesus started. We get to experience its blessings now, even as we look forward to the day when it all becomes complete.
And look, we're not just talking about some abstract theological idea here. The new covenant that Jeremiah promised, the one that Jesus kicked off, it means real, tangible things for people today. Things like actual forgiveness for our failures, a genuinely transformed heart that actually wants to do the right thing, and the power to live the way we were always meant to live. These are the amazing realities of the now. And so I'll just leave you with this to think about. If this is the story we're actually a part of, this tension between what God has already done and what he's promised he will still do, how might that change everything? How we see the world, how we deal with our own struggles, and where we ultimately place our hope for the future.